So, for a flyover state, Kansas City sure does have a lot of history.
But don't worry, there will absolutely be a quiz after this.
Hello, and welcome back to Kansas City Tour Guides. I am Tina.
And I'm Chris Perrin.
And today we're going to do a hopefully brief history of Kansas City.
We don't do brief histories here.
Okay, so here's the deal. Like, when you visit Kansas City, we have so much history in this town. And a lot of it, even Kansas Cityans don't know much about. But I am a huge history nerd, so I have like pages of notes, but we're going to try and keep it chill.
I'm really more interested in the fact that Kansas City is going to make history in this many days down here because we're going to host a World Cup game or two, or the championship, or 90. I mean, however many it needs to be.
We're down for whatever,
Yep,
FIFA.
Exactly.
Hello.
So give us a brief history. Now imagine, our audience, we hope, is coming from all across the world.
Right.
So what are the highlights of Kansas history that if they show up and they're like, I want something to do that is uniquely Kansas City, like what are the top things that they need to know about?
Okay. So quick rundown of Kansas City history. Okay, so we started.
This will not be quick.
I'm trying, y'all. History is so cool.
It is.
Anyway, Kansas City, obviously, we're in the middle of the United States. So the area that is Kansas City started as Native American country.
Yep.
Like we have the Kaw or the Kansa were here first.
Right.
That's what Kansas is named after.
Right.
Eventually the government pushed them out, and then
because that's how the government treated the original natives of this land.
Yeah, it was not great. But you'll see a lot of references around here to Wyandotte and Shawnee, and they were the other tribes that were really
cool.
big around here. Okay.
Yep.
So when you think of Kansas, you probably think cowboys, Native Americans, gunfights. We got it all. All right. So
not anymore, but in our history, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So we had Native Americans. After the Native Americans were here, established, the beginning of the settlers comes through with the Louisiana Purchase, which is like we bought a whole bunch of land from Napoleon.
Yeah, Napoleon needed to fund a war. Mm-hmm. He figured he was going to come back and conquer America anyway. Mm-hmm. So he sold his land he just assumed he was going to take back.
Right.
He didn't get around to it.
No, he didn't. And it's like half of the United States we bought in this purchase.
True, yeah.
And so the government sent out Lewis and Clark to kind of explore, see what there was, figure out what was out here. We have a lot of Lewis and Clark history too, because they did come through this area. They stayed really close to where we live. Mm-hmm, actually, mm-hmm. They had a camp. So that's a fun kind of history thing to explore. Next came kind of the fur traders up from St. Louis. And then,
which is on the other side of Missouri from us.
Mm-hmm, yeah, because the Mississippi River runs like up and down the country.
Yeah, it goes from New Orleans all the way to Minnesota. So it cuts the country basically in half.
And then one of the a spur, a tributary, is the Missouri River, which will take you here to Kansas City.
Yep.
So the fur traders came from St. Louis.
And the river's a huge part of our history with Westport and all that kind of stuff.
History, because the river was a big part of the way people got here. And so we had steamboats and all kind of things, which Steamboat Arabia Museum, another awesome part of history.
Which was a steamboat that ran aground, got covered by sediment, river mud, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And they finally found it, they dug up, and then they made the Steamboat Arabia Museum, which is absolutely worth an afternoon.
Very cool. We'll have to do
absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so the 1830s is what really got Kansas City started, because Kansas City is kind of in the middle of the country, but
not kind of.
It is right in the middle of the country. But it used to be the end of the country. Like the place that we live right now was not part of America in like the 1830s.
Right.
It was the Kansas Territory. Anyway, so people wanted to travel west to find their fortunes.
Oregon, Santa Fe, Old Mexico, which is now Santa Fe, New Mexico. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So this is the start of all three of those trails: the Oregon Trail, Santa Fe Trail, and the California Trail. And Independence and Westport played a huge part in that, because this was like the last stop of civilization for a long time. Cool. And people would bring supplies on a steamboat on the river, and then you could get those supplies and like head west. Gotcha. So we had
when you died of dysentery after hunting a buffalo.
Yes. you've never played Oregon Trail, it's a fun game.
That was an Oregon Trail deep cut. Yeah, definitely.
Cuts.
So anyway.
All right. So Oregon Trail, huge part of Kansas City history. And then after that, we have the Civil War, which, if you're not from America, the Civil War was a war that was fought between the northern states mostly and the southern states mostly.
Yep.
Happened in the 1860s.
Over slavery.
Over slavery. The southern states wanted to keep slavery, and the northern states wanted to get rid of slavery. And you think, but Kansas is not in the north or south. In fact, it was not even really part of the country. Well, yes, but the thing is they were fighting around here about whether Kansas would come into the country as a slave.
Because Missouri came in as a slave state. We came in as a free state.
Sketchy, but yeah.
Well, yeah, and then we fought about it.
And we fought a lot about it. But out of that comes a lot of the history you may know about, like Quantrill's Raiders, the Jayhawkers, Jesse and Frank James, the Younger Gang. All of that stuff is very closely tied into that.
So if you've watched a Western movie, at least one of those words probably makes sense to you. And they were from here. They were active here. Mm-hmm. They killed and died here.
Yeah, you can still go visit Jesse James's house,
cool.
Where he was killed.
We're in St. Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had all that happening. In the 1870s, after the war was over, things kind of settled down. And this is when we become a cow town. This is when the cowboys come in.
Oh, but in a good way.
In a good way.
Okay.
So what happened was the railroads came through and kind of on the same path as the trails, right? Like the Oregon trails, the places were already established. The railroads came through. The trails died down. And what happened is that we became like a stockyard. So all of the people out west that would raise their cattle out west would drive them on a cattle drive. Like
so cowboys on horses.
Literally cowboys on horses. Drive them to Kansas City. And we had some of the largest stockyards ever. Rawhide. Yeah, like literally Western movies where you see cowboys driving, they're driving them to Kansas City. And then we'd send those cows to heaven. And put them on trains and ship them back east for the people back east to have hamburgers. I don't think they ate hamburgers back then. Anyways, but one cool thing about that is you can still go to this restaurant called the Golden Ox. Yeah. It closed for a little while, but it's down in the West Bottoms where the stockyards used to be. And that is supposedly where the Kansas City strip steak got its name.
KC strip? Nice.
KC strip, which is like a famous cut of meat that,
that New York also claims. Wrongly, I might add.
Mm-hmm. So you'll have a KC strip steak.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So after the 1870s, there was, I don't want to say a lull, but the next big part of history is when we get to the Pendergast era, which people outside of Kansas City have no idea who that is.
Who's Pendergast?
I'm about to tell you. Okay, so Kansas City went from being Cowtown to what they called the Paris of the Plains, because Mr. Tom Pendergast was he was a boss for the Democratic Party. Basically, he was a corrupt politician that kind of let everything go. And so during Prohibition is where we get another huge part of our history. We had jazz, we had speakeasies, we had drinking, we had it all.
Mafia, organized crime. Mm-hmm. Yep.
People would come here to Kansas City because it was like the Wild West again. Because Pendergast was in charge and he was like, meh, if I'm making money, I don't care. So we're definitely going to have to do a show on Pendergast.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So we got jazz, everything, and then, of course, World War I hits, which if you know anything about World War I, which you may not in Kansas, but we have the official National World War I Museum.
The Liberty Memorial.
Mm-hmm, the Liberty Memorial.
Which we're going to do an episode from here shortly.
Yes, we will. So that's definitely worth a visit. Then we get into like the 30s and the 40s. The 30s, if you visit Union Station, we had a big mob incident
with the bullet
there.
Holes you can see in the wall.
You see the bullet holes in the wall. So Frank Nash was a big gangster. He'd escaped. The feds were trying to take him back to Leavenworth Prison, which is around here too.
Nice area. Good.
Leavenworth is a cool little
good town. Restaurants, yeah.
And his friend, Pretty Boy Floyd, decided he was going to try and break him out. So they had a huge gun fight. 4 policemen died. Frank Nash got killed in in the gunfire.
And you can still see the bullet holes in Union Station today. Yep.
So, and there's Bonnie and Clyde were active, not quite around here, but a little to the south. So we have big gangster history around here too. Then we get into like World War II. We had a gigantic plant to make B-25s down in Fairfax. Also, the Kansas City Monarchs. You know who played for the Monarchs in 1945?
Jackie Robinson.
Jackie Robinson and Satchel Paige.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about Satchel Paige.
So we have big baseball history here too.
And I think, so we've been talking about history for a while, and World War II is a significant point in American history. Why don't we pause here and do a second episode on Kansas City history?
We can, but I only have 2 things left to say.
Okay, go for it then.
Okay. After World War II, the biggest things that happened is we got sports teams. We were in the very first Super Bowl in 1967.
Super Bowl I. They got taken off air for Heidi, right? In that, like they cut into the broadcast because it went over, and so they played, some movie. Anyway.
That's your deal. And then after that, we basically just started growing some more. We got an international airport. Hallmark, the famous card company, is here.
AMC
they
Theaters,
started Crown Center, Cerner, Sprint. So that takes us to modern day, and that was like the super fastest version. There's so much more.
You forgot the most important thing that ever happened in Kansas City.
What?
In 2018, Patrick Mahomes was drafted to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Patrick Mahomes.
And then we won 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah. Okay. So if you like history, tune back in. I will do some specifically on history, maybe without this guy because he hates it.
So, but if any of that seems really interesting to you, we want to know because, I mean, we can talk about this for hours if we want to. If you want to hear about it, if you want to know more about Quantrill's Raiders and Jesse James and this history of the Civil War, I mean, it was a terrible time in our nation, but
it's so closely tied into Kansas.
Exactly. And to this day, like our colleges in Kansas and Missouri hate each other because it all ties back to we just don't like each other. And it's not, we don't shoot at each other, we don't fight each other, but we rival the heck out of each other. And it, makes some of our sporting events more fun and just kind of that whole thing. So we'd love to talk more about it.
Yeah. And we will definitely visit some of the places we talked about and some places we didn't talk about and kind of tell you how to get there, what they're doing, if you're interested in like the National Trails Center and Jesse James's house and all that stuff. Yeah. We'll do some individual episodes on those at some point.
Sounds good.
All right. See you next time.
Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.